way, so don't think you can script it. Lord talking to you, so boy, pay attention. He shot me a blessing, I counted, I flipped it. Save me from death, so through him, know I'm living.
Growing up in the 90s, I felt like a misfit.
Good evening and welcome. This is another episode of One of Them Ones. This is Greg, your host. And this evening, I just want to get straight to it. I'm one of them ones that Jesus died on the cross for. I'm a sinner, and he went and he carried my sins and he paid for them with his sacrifice. And then he was made alive again, and I am made alive again in him. So I'm a new man, but I'm one of them ones. And if you're joining in, you're welcome in. If you're tuning in, you are as well too. And if not, if you need an opportunity, there's always time. There's always a chance. Right now is a chance of forgiveness. Right now is a chance to repent. Right now is a chance to enter into the kingdom of heaven in Jesus' name. I want to give a disclaimer. So before we get started, this conversation is not in any way going to excuse any crime, nor is this any way victim shaming on all sides. This is not to just, miss the pain and hurt that anybody on all sides have felt. And this is not to remove accountability. This is a simply episode where we want to talk about what happens after a person has pretty much paid for a crime. How long after their sentence does it take for a person to be forgiven, or how long after does a person have to experience shame? How long after the door closed does it take for a person to experience reconciliation? We live in a time today where punishment is final, right? Cancel culture. Once you mess up once, you're messed up forever and you're canceled forever. So what we want to do is we want to take time to see why is punishment permanent? We want to explore restoration. That's what we're doing today. We're exploring restoration. And so how long after we punish someone do we have to wait until they're restored? How long after someone's crashed out, as the kids would say? How long do we keep them away from their children? How long do we vilify them? That's what we're going to express today. That's what we're going to explore today. We're here to talk about forgiveness after. We're here to talk about reconciliation after the punishment. Tune in. All right. So here we are. Another one of them episodes. One of them ones. Which one are you? I'm one of them ones that was with Jesus, and I saw Peter walk on the boat, and I thought it was, get off the boat, walk on water, and I thought it was crazy. I'm one of them ones who was hanging out with Jesus at supper, and when he was chilling with all the sinners. I'm one of them ones, man. He's did so many things in my life, and I try to follow him in every aspect, especially in the aspect of knowing that he experienced every suffering that is to be known, which means he had to understand. He experienced the temptation of not being able to have, not being able to have one of them McRibs in July when they only come out in November, right? So that's just how I like to think of it. I want to kind of try to lower the mood, because what we're going to do right now is something that takes courage, something that takes boldness. Be strong and courageous is what we're doing right now, right? This show, what one of them ones is about, is what we're doing right now. This is about testing the faith, not testing it in a bad sense, but are you really saved? Are you really forgiven? Are you really a forgiving person? Are you really a loving person? Are you really a follower of Christ? Because Christ hung with everybody. People who snitched on him, people who turned their backs on him. He hung with everybody. So that's what we're doing. That's why you're one of them ones, just by going on that seat. And I commend you. Anybody who ever comes on and it's being interviewed, just know it's all love on this side, and I'll defend you. I'll ride with you until the end, because that's what Jesus would do. You know, the only time he wouldn't do it is if you ain't believe in him. And you know, even then, I believe if you have a change of heart, he's gonna definitely bring you in. So let's get it started. Me and you were talking, right? So reconciliation, getting back with the family, getting back with the kids. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I grew up in East Texas and Central Texas, and got over to West Texas, where my mother was from, and it kind of seeped in my bones. You know, West Texas is a lot different, a lot flatter, a lot drier, a lot dirtier, but there's just something about it that seeps in your bones. And I ended up getting married and to my first wife, and ended up going to Iraq and coming home. And
so you a vet?
Yeah, coming home and dealing with not having the loyalty and the brotherhood I had when I was overseas, and I didn't know how to deal with it right, you know, and there wasn't a whole lot of, at the time it was early in the war, and there wasn't a whole lot of experience in people coming home and the effects of what it would have. And my first wife, even while I was still in Iraq, she was giving me hints, and I ended up coming home and things just didn't get any better, you know, and started using drugs and trying to numb and self-medicate. It wasn't to have fun and party. I was doing it to self-medicate. I was doing it to keep from putting a pistol in my mouth. And then my wife and kids burned off, went to East Texas, and I was alone at the house, and I ended up, I was going that night, I got my pistol, I was getting in my truck, and I was going to drive down dirt road, and a friend of mine called me up and told me to come to town, and I'd been bouncing at the bar at night, and so I'd met a lot of the nightlife people, and there was drugs involved, and I ended up going back to town that night and trying methamphetamines, and I didn't think about killing myself anymore. But it didn't make anything better. It pushed things off. It made me get further behind on my child support. It was destruction, death. I ended up going up to Lubbock after that into a rehab, a sober living type situation. And the divorce went through, and I didn't see my kids hardly at all. There's this thing called parental alienation, and I experienced that heavy in my first marriage, and then I went up to Lubbock and found my last wife, and I was in rehab, you know, and I met her, and things went good for a while, and then, you know, sooner or later I ended up messing up again and doing the same thing.
What do you mean messing up?
Getting into a place where, you know, my mental health never was addressed. It always led me back to a dark place, depression, and I don't know. I get in those dark places and I think about it, and there was always one way to, you know. But I took my eyes off my Savior, because Jesus had done a lot of things for me in my life, and I hadn't had my first spiritual awakening yet. That happened in 2019, but I knew He was there, and I knew He existed, and I thought I loved Him, you know. But I took my eyes off Him so many times, and it was easy to self-medicate, because whenever I did the drugs, it made all that pain and emotion go away.
So you took your eyes off of him. This was the second wife.
Yeah.
All right. The title of this is Crash Out, and look, again, what you're doing, I commend you. It's very courageous. I've been through many of crash outs myself. So, but what is that? describe in a little bit more detail. Like, what is that though? What is when you take your eyes off of Christ? What does that look like?
I messed around with drugs. My wife got involved with it. We did a lot of stuff and went all over Texas. But I'll fast forward to 2019 so many times in my life, and labels me as as just somebody that's trying to get high.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not the case. I was trying to get help, and I was in bad pain. They misdiagnosed me. They gave me a shot of Dilaudid and thought that was going to fix everything. And they came with my discharge papers. And I told the doctor right there in front of my wife and another medical professional, I said, you can't let me walk out those doors in the same condition I came in. I'm not asking for more drugs. I'm asking for you to find out what's wrong with me. And
what do you think was wrong? What was going on?
What ended up, later we found out I had 6 herniated discs in my neck, 3 of them collapsed, nerve pain so bad that I've never experienced pain like that before. And I told the doctor straight up right then, I said, when he said, I'm sorry, I'm going to discharge you tonight. And I said, if you discharge me tonight, there's going to only be 1 or 2 things happening tonight. And that's me killing myself or me numbing the pain. And I know how to numb pain. And I said, I don't want to do that. And he said, I'm sorry, that's all I can do for you. At that point, legally, he should have had me locked up for a 72-hour hold. That by law, that's what a medical professional is supposed to do. And he threatened that. But,
okay. I get you on that. But I want to keep us focused on, because again, this is very important. A lot of times when, let's just be honest, right? People don't want to hear the reasons why. They don't, the society, we don't really care about who, what, when, where. It's, you're a man, you have a family, you have a responsibility. That comes before all. So everything else can, will get dismissed as an excuse. So let's give them what they want. Let's stay on the crash out.
So I relapsed in that night and had people in my house I hadn't had in 4.5 years. The next morning, my wife wakes up to go to work, and she does it too. It leads to 7 months of chaos, to where she gets on a plane and leaves the state when I go to re-up on drugs. And
so 7 months of chaos,
which I take full responsibility for. I was the head of the household. I brought that poison in my house.
And I'm gonna stop right there. That's a big thing that you're doing right there, right? I'm gonna throw myself in this category. As a user myself, as someone in recovery myself, someone battling with the drug myself, and someone who's lost his family as well. I could say all kinds of things, but ultimately, the thing that needs to be said is, what am I allowing in my house? When my eyes are on Jesus, I'm guarding my house. But when my eyes are on myself, now I'm a little bit relaxed and I'm letting everything in my house. So I commend you on that. That's a big point. That's a big point. And then it deserved to be highlighted on.
For sure. When I was told, when I went into that sober living, and I forgave myself in that praise and worship setting, God told me, 5 big miracles he was going to do. And nobody believed it. Nobody. I posted it on Facebook, and nobody believed it. It was 5 things that I had no control over. Like I wasn't going to prison. God had already told me I was going to get a 5-year probation sentence. He spoke to my heart. It wasn't something I heard in my ears. It was. I knew it was my Creator. I knew. I felt it plain as day. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt it was Him talking to me. And so I posted on Facebook. Nobody believed it. I had a court-appointed attorney that actually was still representing me until recently, and over the years, because of what he saw. He didn't believe none of those things were going to happen either, but they did. I ended up getting my wife back and my children back. I ended up not going to prison. The DA was wanting it big time, but they ended up giving me 5 years probation. Coronavirus hit, God had just done all those big miracles in my life. And we get a place out in the country, and it's during COVID, and there were some things spoken about that last night on last night's podcast that, I had open heart surgery, and I was home with the kids. My wife was the only one able to work. She had a service position, and so she was able to work during COVID. I had 4 quarantines with 4 children, with 4 laptops, 4 different teachers, 8 hours a day. And I got depressed during that. You know, I once again, after I just watched God do major miracles in my life, I do it again, and I take my eyes off of them, and I start stressing over the bills. I start stressing over everything that's happening. My daughter ends up coming down with Kawasaki's disease. We thought it was COVID at first, and which it mimics it really, really heavy. So we're dealing with her in the children's hospital, and my wife's going to the hospital, and we're switching out every now and then. And we get a call from my wife's sister, and she had just got out of prison, and she'd come down, and it was the start of, you know, a major thing that happened in my life, and I ended up flying to Fort Worth. Well, I went to relieve my wife at the hospital, and they said that when I got there, about 2 minutes later, they were going to Medi-Flight us on a life flight to Fort Worth. And I remember flying over the state of Texas and seeing the Christmas lights out, you know, from the airplane, and landing in Fort Worth and spending Thanksgiving there with my daughter, and going, you know, I've been there about a month. And one of the days early in December of that year, Fort Worth police officer showed up and arrested me. They told me it was for assault. That's all I knew at the time. My son and my grandson were outside waiting for me. I ended up going to jail. I found out, you know, what's going on, and it's something that I never thought. I don't know. It blew me away. I was immediately taken to Tarrant County Jail, and it's a rough place, and I thought about suicide. I thought about all kinds of things while I was there. I ended up going back to the county where I was from, and I spent 14 months in lockup before I ever saw my attorney. I had no contact with my family anymore, other than my brother, and I ended up spending 22 months total in there. I saw my attorney after 14 months, which is insane. But I fired him immediately when he showed up. He showed up and crazy looking, and I got a new attorney. I was told the situation. I saw my options, and there, you know, it was up to 99 years in prison, and we had tablets in there, and
so up to 99 years in prison.
Yes,
for
aggravated sexual assault of a minor. And something I never thought I'd be facing, but
wow.
I
describe. Can you describe that? So, my question is, you were in the hospital with your daughter, right?
Yes.
And you were arrested while in the hospital with your daughter.
The day she was getting out, I spent over a month there with her, taking care of her, bathing her. With the Kawasaki's disease causes your skin to fall off real bad. So, you know, I spent time cutting her toenails and taking care of her like a good dad would, you know. And the day we were getting out, I didn't know that there was already some stuff in the works back home, and they were stalling me at the hospital because, you know, everything had been good until that last day, and then you know, it was weird. I didn't know what was going on, other than they were stalling out, and I didn't know why.
So at what point in all of this going on did it register that it wasn't just some law that you were possibly breaking? You know, because all this is allegedly, you just got arrested. But at what point did it sink in that this was a family doing that was going on here? This was trust that was broken. When did that sink in?
When they arrested me upstairs, they were professional. They told me it was for assault, and I had no idea what that was about. I got downstairs, and I told them that my son had all of my medications and ID and everything. He was waiting for me. My daughter and I were going to go home for the holidays for Christmas. They gave me the option of that. She wasn't cured yet. She had a lot more ahead of her. But I get downstairs with my son and my grandson, and I'm in the police car handcuffed. I have my grandson sitting in my lap, you know, and I told my son to call my wife, he does. And then she says, all she tells him is it's about my 14-year-old stepdaughter, and
Now, is this the same one that's in the hospital with the disease?
no, this is the one that was in the hospital is biologically my daughter.
Okay.
She was my first daughter with my second wife. She had already had another daughter that I raised from the time she was 2. And this was what it was about. And, I get to the county jail over there in Tarrant County, and of course, they bring us into a big room, and the judges are like on the monitor, and they're calling out everybody and having them say what they're arrested for. And of course, when I get up there, they say aggravated sexual assault of a child, and I can hear everybody in there, and the guys that were fixing to probably whoop my ass in the cell.
Why is that?
Because of the charge. Everybody automatically assumes everybody's guilty of whatever. It blows me away that even I've had to put this together over the years, because wearing this jacket is not something that it doesn't come with a list of instructions. It doesn't come with how do you live again. It doesn't tell you. So I tell them something that I mostly haven't told a bunch of outlaws, and that's that when I was 19 years old, I was a correctional officer. That's what got me out of that cell and kept me away from that situation, because everybody was in there looking at me like they were trying to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
So I told the sergeant on duty that I was a correctional officer when I was 19. Back then, it was to feed my family, and when I worked there, I got respect because I respected the inmates, but in my life, being mostly an outlaw, that's a stigma that I didn't tell a lot of people, but that's what I used to get out of there. And I'm not going to lie about that. I'm not going to lie about anything. But so they put me in a segregation cell, and it's a rough place. Tarrant County Jail is a very rough place, and I actually tried to hang myself while I was in there and woke up in the floor.
Wow. So you did a suicide attempt while in Tarrant County and did not go successful and ended up on the floor. So
I remember blacking out and my breath going away. And I thought about it a lot of times, man, because I've had friends that were born again Christians that love the Lord, kill themselves, and that's a whole other story, but I still believe my father and my Savior's blood's not that cheap. People believe what they want to believe, but I just, I believe there's 2 ways to cross that. And Paul talks about finishing your race and how he wanted to finish his race well. And later on in my incarceration, I read that, and I wanted to do the same thing, but I heard it this way, we all sin, but do you want to crawl across the finish line or do you want to run?
Yeah. I've heard another way, like we can all go to heaven, but do you want to go with be like a wood utensil, or do you want to go in there with jewels and crowns and go
Right.
So
I didn't want to wake up in Jesus' arms and say, well, it was, I thought my time was more important than your time, I took that away from you, Lord. I didn't want to see disappointment in his eyes whenever, he was holding me. So I tried not to commit suicide anymore after that, but it was real hard. It was a spiritual battle. The 22 months I was locked up, I had gotten the routine down on the 15-minute checkups, and I knew how long the guard could pass by, and I might be able to get over by the toilet and slip my wrist and die. So that was a constant battle, but I had to stay in the Word. I had to continue to sing praise music, the stuff that I could remember. I had another brother in there that actually introduced me to you, that was, he had his own struggle going on, but if it wouldn't been for him, I don't think I'd have made it.
And if I could, real quick, shout out brother, to brother Drew. While incarcerated, just he has managed to do probably more ministry work than anybody I have met in my life outside of the wall, except for a very small few. So just a little story for everybody listening. God works in mysterious ways, and he works for those incarcerated. He works through those who are incarcerated. So no matter where you're at, never ever lose the faith, because you always can be used. This brother we're talking about has probably over 20. It probably has a handful. I'm gonna say, I don't want to put a number on it, but everybody who's come in contact with him has almost either became a pastor or minister of some sort because of his ministry.
And we're talking about a guy who was I'm not going to mention the gang, but he was a major shot. And, he did what he had to do with the gang that he was involved with, and it was a lot of inhumane things that he had to do. And he found the Lord, and he turned his life around. And is he perfect? No. But I tell you what, I truly believe I wouldn't have made it through that situation without him, because there was many times I just needed iron sharpening iron, and he definitely did that for me, and I appreciate it. I'll never forget it. Even out, since I've been out, him and his wife have reached out and helped me with work, with food. They even offered me a shower when I was homeless recently. But I get out after that 22 months. I ended up, I didn't go to trial. Part of me wanted to really bad.
So this is for the case that you were in there for.
Yes.
And you get out 22 months later.
I get out 22 months later because I was told it would be deferred adjudicated probation 10 years.
So they put that offer of probation. So for this crime, did you have any other major crimes before this? Or?
Yes, I did. Like I said, I was arrested for that drug charge. My first felony was evading arrest, and that was during the times that I was running around, and after I'd left Lubbock, and it was about 4 years later, I got my first felony running from a DPS officer while I was high on methamphetamine.
So you own that one?
Yes, and I was definitely guilty of that. I was definitely guilty of the drug charge. I actually, if I'd have got arrested if I didn't throw out the drugs I threw out, and let me just go ahead and put this out there because this is real interesting. The night I got arrested for that drug charge, I already had my own drugs, but I was going to help a person out who got robbed that day. And I go to my dealer, and he ends up giving me, extra. But when I leave there, I knew I was being followed. And I get to Taco Bell, and I pull in there real quick.
I hear you. I want to keep us on the crash out part, though, because I want to go into too many details with anything legal or anything like that. This is all about that's like, I want to be fair to the viewership. We're gonna be accountable. We're gonna be open up with our hearts. We're gonna be sincere. So I want to keep us on that path. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to keep us on that path. And so you had the drug charge you went up to. You had the other drug charge you went up to. And then now you have this.
Well, I had a evading arrest with a motor vehicle while I was high on drugs, which, it was just evading arrest. And then I had the drug charge, so that was my second felony. This was my third felony.
But nothing ever like this on any of the previous ones?
Never, ever.
So what would you say? I have a question here. Was the consequence, do you believe it was fair? And at what point did you start feeling like you were exiled away from your family? So was the probation, do you believe it was fair?
Well, they told me before I ever signed the guilty plea, they told me I was going to be back in my children's lives right off the bat, at least video visits. If I pleaded guilty. The state of Texas, and there's times I look back on it in hindsight and I wish I would have fought it, but the thing is in the state of Texas, if they think that they can't complete the case, they're going to try to give you 10 years deferred adjudicated, where it goes off your record. They told me I'd be back in my children's lives. I'm not getting any younger. I've already had open heart surgery. There's a lot of things where, an 8-year sentence, even if it was 8 years aggravated, that could be a death sentence for me. I've already had open heart surgery. I've had stents put in several times. I've got a lot of medical stuff going on. So I'm thinking about getting back in my children's lives. That was the main thing that pushed me to sign the guilty thing. I'd already been locked up for almost 2 years without any kind of good legal counsel. And so that all happened. I pled guilty. I get out. The first day I go to the probation office.
Now, if you don't mind, real quick, I'm gonna interject. So there's going. I'm a Twitter gangster. I'm out here. You know what I mean? I'm real tough. So my thought process is, I didn't do it, and I'm not gonna sign. Where does that play in? I heard you say a little bit about health issues. I've heard you, but you did time before too.
I've never done any over 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was always county jail. I've never been to prison.
Mm-hmm.
This time was different. I've been locked up for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of being in there. I haven't seen my children. The last things I told my son before I got arrested on a video chat the night before was they were telling me how much they missed me, and I'd be home soon because I knew I was coming home in the next couple of days. And that didn't happen. So 2 years later, I'm still sitting in the jail, wondering what my sons were thinking, or you know, where's Dad? You know, and
was there any third party that was willing to fill in the gap and let you talk to the other kids, or
no? Actually, my wife, she got a new boyfriend, and he was real controlling in that relationship.
Okay.
He said that my kids couldn't even be around my older kids from my first marriage.
Okay.
So it was completely cut off. I get out on probation. I go to the courthouse that day to sign all the paperwork, and they tell me right there that I can't be around anybody under the age of 17. And I said, wait. I was promised that I could at least have video visits with my children. And they said, well, the judge didn't say that, and this is what the paperwork says. I immediately started crying. I'm not ashamed to say I started crying.
So what did that feel like at that moment?
It felt like my soul had been ripped out of me, because that was one of the major reasons why I pled guilty and didn't fight what was being said about me. It was devastating, but then I started having to think about it, and I was like, man says things all the time, and I can't give up hope. I have to keep up the hope that I'm going to be in my children's lives, and so I signed the paperwork. I'm told I go on this probation. I complete these psychology classes. I go to psychology class twice a month under a psychiatrist's care. I'm told that I can get these things amended and get them back in my life. And I'm out 3 years. I've passed every polygraph test they put in front of me. I actually get my grandchildren back in my life. My young grandchildren, I get the amendment for them.
So real quick on that note, how old were you when all this is going on? Let's answer that just simply for me, real quick.
2020, I was 47 years old.
Okay, so you're 47. Then also, how many children did you have from your other marriage?
I had 3. I adopted my oldest son, who's always been like a son to me. He's the one that supported me the most throughout all of this stuff.
So you've had a stepson before in the other marriage,
and 3 daughters in that marriage.
Okay. So 4 children, 4 up into the second marriage.
Right, and then I met my new wife. She's got our stepdaughter. My stepdaughter that's 2 years old, and I raised her until she's 14, I think, is whenever all this was said. And I had a daughter and 2 sons with her.
Okay.
So 8 children altogether.
So big family now.
Big family. A lot of damage that I caused, because I don't know if, and I'm not going off on addiction, but the thing is it's been proven several times that addiction is a disease. There's a gene that's found in our bodies that's not in other people's bodies, that can drink normal, that can drug normal, that can do a line and walk away and not even touch it anymore. If that's me, I'm lost in this whole other deal.
So on that note, I would like to, because that brings up a good point. So at what point did it start? At any point, did it ever feel like everything you were going through just kind of wasn't like worth, like, to try to fight against it was even worth it? Did you ever just give up, or did you feel like that all of the bad you were up against wasn't going to produce anything good?
Well, that was part of the learning process because I mean that's why I've had multiple suicide attempts or thoughts of doing it and in my life and I didn't do it. But the thing is in 2019 when I felt that love of my father and he did those miracles in my life, it revolutionized my life to where I didn't want to sin. I'm not saying I don't sin because everybody sins, but I didn't sin the same way. I didn't sin without the conviction or the thought of hurting my father's heart because he showed that love to me in 2019 and 2020 and it gave me back everything I wanted. And I still put my hands on it and strangled it again. And but the thing is it revolutionized me to where even in this last relapse, after all this time, I had 5.5 years clean and I relapsed and I don't do the same things I was doing before 2019. People come to my house and I give them safe haven. I'm not saying I wasn't putting a needle in my arm. I wasn't doing, I was doing bad things, but I wasn't lying to people. I wasn't cheating people. I wasn't stealing from people. And I was helping a lot of people that didn't have anybody else that could help them in those times. There was females out there that were being trafficked and hurt and shot up with drugs against their will and made into things that they weren't, that they didn't ever expect to happen. And I offered them safe haven. Never once did I violate them in any way. I never pushed myself on them. I never hit on them. I offered them food. I offered them a shower, a place to sleep. And I would have laid my life down at the door of my house before any of them predators came in and messed with those people. And they know that. And it's, I had people that will vouch for that to this day. Many people saw the stuff that was going on and I had a target on my back. But you know what? I had a father that was looking out for me too. Even throughout all of that, I knew he would put me because I totally believe no matter where you are, if you're in drug addiction or whatever, and you have Jesus in you, that he will still use you in those situations because it's a battle against light and dark. And even though I'm pushing the envelope and I'm welcoming darkness in my home, at the same time, there's still a light inside of me, a light that helps other people, and I vouch for that 110%. And so.
So I have a question on that, right? So let's say, society never accepts you. It never allows you to come to that place of redemption, or they always view you as this. What do you? What is your motivation to stay clean? Because that could be we struggle with depression. So what is the incentive? What is your incentive to stay clean? What is your incentive?
I did it for 3.5 years. I got out and I lived in a sober living community.
Yeah, but I mean now though.
But that's what my point I'm getting to is the fact that I did it for 3.5 years. What made me relapse was signing my divorce papers and my attorney. I'm not going to put no blame on nobody else, but he got me to sign some paperwork that I didn't want to sign. And it put me in a place where I just wanted to stop the pain for a minute, because I said I'd never sign those kind of paperwork and it was giving up my visitation right. But the thing is when I relapsed, I'd already been experiencing every time I walked into Walmart, wondering if so-and-so is seeing what is on the news or what's in the registry or whatever. I walk around on eggshells all the time feeling like a leper. That's what I felt like, was a leper, somebody that's an outcast of society. And, I had to learn how to wear that jacket because I didn't go around just telling people, what I was charged with and letting the relationship start like that. I wanted them to get to know me a little bit. And I didn't know that at first, but that was the most successful thing. Once people got to know me and they found out what I was charged with, I guarantee you there's people that still love me to this day because they know the real me, what's inside of me. But
so because we're getting here on time, so I want to get all the questions, and this is the last one,
okay.
And this is the most important one, right?
Right.
Is, do you believe that you deserve to have access to your children again, and why?
Definitely. And I spent the last 5 years fighting for that, and my sons are growing. They're one just became a teenager, the other one's on his way. My daughter's already a teenager that I was in Fort Worth with, taking care of. I'm their father. Nobody can love them like I can love them, and nobody was loving them like I can love them. And And the thing is, you know, the parental alienation is being brought before the courts more and more, and it's a real thing, and they're acknowledging it now. The last 2 times I went before a judge, they were in my favor. My brother actually got to see him for the first time in 4 years on Thanksgiving. And I wonder sometimes if I didn't relapse that last time, if it would have been me visiting him. Because she's away from that guy now, and she's in the church.
Yeah. We want to keep it on you. We want to keep it on you, all right?
I just think that there's definitely still hope that I can be in their lives. I just got out of 45 days of treatment for my relapse. I'm facing some serious stuff right now, but I'm doing it with God. You know, it says Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or dismayed, for I go with you wherever, or I'm with you wherever you go. And I stand on that. I believe it. And I've seen him move. It's just there's times where I feel like the enemy's, you know, I just feel like I'm not worthy anymore because I mess up so much. And, you know, I'm wearing that jacket, and it's definitely something that I would not wish on anybody.
Well, you know, the good thing about wearing a jacket is, right?
You don't get cold.
You can take it off.
Right.
You can take it off.
And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I feel like this right here. And then, you know, coming out more public about everything that's happened is a way to heal for not only myself, but everybody. And I feel like there's hope for me to be in my children's lives again. And I gotta believe that. But if not, I walk with God because He says I'm never alone, and I'll do what I have to do.
Amen. So, one of them ones. Again, a very sensitive topic. We want to, first and foremost, we're not excusing any crime, nor are we trying to diminish anybody who's a victim in this. I want to be clear with that. But this is what I mean by, what are we going to sit around and do? We can't just sit around and do nothing, right? You have to do something. The church, we have power. We have God. We have authority over certain things, not over ruling over what crimes and who deserves to be punished, who, what, when, and where. But reconciliation is one of the things that God is sent us here for, right? So I want to read the word first, and then I want to go ahead and in this episode, right? Deuteronomy chapter 30. This is the Lord speaking to Moses, right? When all these blessings and curses I have set before you come on, and you take them to heart, wherever the Lord your God disperses you among the nations, and you and your children return to the Lord your God and obey Him with all your heart and with all your soul, according to everything I commanded you today. Then the Lord your God will restore you fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where He scattered you. Right? I'm going to stop there. Notice, God is so good because He is the ultimate accountability. God said, I'm the one who put the blessings on you, and I'm the one who put the curses on you. And until not only you, Father, get it together, but you, Mother, get it together, and all your children get it together. When all of y'all return back to a place of worship, then I'll restore you. Want to know why a lot of things aren't restored right now? Is because it's too much on one person. Now, again, everything that went on today, I am in no way casting judgment. I don't know any of that. That was my brother's testimony. But what I do know, what I want to talk about, is how we handle people who do struggle with drug abuse. It's ridiculous. Your tough love does not work. How about you try something else? We've been trying tough love for decades. It don't work. It don't work. That's why you get people committing suicide, and then everybody wants to be at the funeral crying, but nobody was there in the trenches. Everyone wants to cast somebody out, but nobody wants to go and get dirty and go in there like Jude 123 says, and reach your hand into the fire and pull up the brother who is there in sin, not touching it or counting anything that he's wearing worthy, because you despise sin that much. But you still got to put your hand in the fire. Nobody puts their hand in the fire no more. That's what I'm doing right now. Nobody wants to, everyone has an opinion, but then when it gets down to the nitty gritty, nobody can be found. Y'all, everyone turns around. I'll get vilified for having this on my podcast, but at least I'm doing something. I'm not doing nothing. Go sing some hymns somewhere all you want. That's cool. But what are you doing on a community level for those who are struggling with drugs? What are you doing on a personal family level? And then if something happens, now you feel with shame and guilt, and now you're burdening everybody. But then now somebody has to help you. That's if you ain't pissed them off too bad, and then you'll be alone in the same ditch you put the other person in. Again, what's so wrong with my brother's family? This is in no way, the only way it's related is on the aspect of how we do forgiveness, how we do reconciliation. Now, if you have a better way, do it. Right? Do it. But to me, doing nothing is not a way. That's just lazy. That's scared. That's fear. That's worry. Now I have a way. It's in Jesus Christ. Now I have boldness. I'm going to do it. And this is what it looks like. But don't just do nothing. It's old. Don't do nothing. Because when you're doing nothing, it's because you believe in nothing. So I'll leave you with this. How long? How long? I do the crime. I do the time. How long? I go to rehab. I come out of rehab. I mess up again. How long? I'm at the place where I will bump it. I don't care. If I drink a big gulp of alcohol, I'm going to go in the Lord's house. I'm going to praise Him anyway, because I don't care. Because you don't care. You only care about image when you're one of these people. When you're one of them, not one of them ones, not a chosen one. You only care about your own personal image, on how it makes the family look, on how it makes you look. Get over yourself. That's what being a Christian is about. It's about dying to self. And you can sit there and say, oh, well, the person doing drugs should die to themselves. How do you know that God ain't put them in your life to get you off your butt to do something? So how long? And this with the kids, gotta stop. Has to stop. Again, what we're on today, I'm highly sensitive on because I do not know. And it is not my place. But I am still going to have boldness enough to speak that I believe in reconciliation enough that it overcomes all things. All of them. Case in point, Oprah Winfrey, right? She's been through some horrendous things. She's overcame it. She's reconciled with it. No wonder why how long? How long? Let me know.